Idag så är jag biltokig i Long Beach på ett stort Cars and Coffee-möte som är här den 4:e söndagen varje månad på Juniper Beach. Men vi ska inte titta på några av de här härliga hot rodsen eller trimmade Porscharna eller trimmade Toyota Suprorna. Idag ska vi bara titta på en Volvo 242. Den gröna här med vita och blåa ränder på. Det här är en enägarbil. Samma ägare sedan 1980. 45 år. Han älskar Volvo och han har byggt den här bilen till någonting alldeles unikt. Jag älskar den här bilen.
Hi, I'm Tim Otters, Otters, and I'm from Whittier, California.
And I saw you when you came in. I mean, it's this car is, you know, it attracts attention. It looks great, but technically, I mean, you've gone over the wall on it, so on. Tell me, what's the recipe for the engine to start with?
Well, so it was originally, this car was normally aspirated, you know, 1980 B21. And so, but in 2000, I repainted the car. And what happens, I painted it the Volvo blue-green metallic with gold rally stripes, and I had some like BBS wheels, gold BBSs on there. And so people would I'd pull up to a light and they'd be like, rev it, you know, and like punch it. Well, you got 80 horsepower, so it's not going anywhere. And so after about a year and a half of hearing that, I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna turbo this thing. So that's what I did. So I got a donor car, a turbo, a 1982 Volvo turbo. B21 FT engine. So I took out everything, all the electronics, took everything out from that engine, that car, swapped it over to this one. So then I re-smogged it for that, and so I'd take it to the referee to get the smog for it. And so I changed it to turbo, and then like I was telling you before, is that the Volvo turbo engine had no power until you got to 4,000 RPMs or above, which I never liked driving around at that high RPM. So a couple years later, I decided to do a stroker motor. And so that's what this engine is. And that's when the snowball started, really, is that the stroker is a 2.8 liter. So I stroked it to 2.8. I didn't bore it at all. I just stroked it. And so then what happened is I ended up going with the stroker. And so I wanted it for low RPM torque. So I put a smaller turbo. So boost would come in right away at like 14 to 1600. I had boost, and at 2000 I had full boost pressure, and I designed it for 30 pounds of boost. So I ran 7-to-1 compression, 1:5-to-1 rod ratio, and so it just was a torque monster. And I knew the transmission wasn't going to probably handle it, which
because you had the M45.
I had originally I had. Because when I swapped it over, I put the M47. Okay. So the overdrive, the 5-speed. Yeah. But that one broke about 6 months, the first one. Then but Volvo warrantied it for whatever reason. So they gave me another one. So the thing is, the second one, I hit it in third gear and it broke the case. So that one lasted about another 6 or 8 months. But then I had my M45, which was originally with this car, so I put that in, and that one lasted about a year, and then it finally broke too. So I said, you know, I don't want to play games now. So bottom line is, I'll make it to where it works. And that's when the whole wide body setup came in, because the rear end I got was from Strange Engineering. They build custom rear end cases. So it's a 9-inch rear end, and they can make them any size they want. So the one issue with the Volvo 240s to me was always the front was wide, but the back was tucked in, the back wheels, so you didn't have that handling capacity. So I always liked the look of like the 911 wide body turbos, so that's what I decided to do. So I widened the rear track. Right now it's 2 feet wider than stock. Okay. And so
and when you say 9-inch, so it's actually like a Ford.
It's a Ford 9-inch. Yeah, it's a Ford 9-inch, but they make the custom case for it. So it's a 9-inch, so that's indestructible. And then in the gear ratio I have on it is 3.92 to 1 rear end gear ratio. But I widened the rear track 2 feet wider. I got from Pick Apart, I just got some fenders off a Ford dually truck, and then modified those to cut them to fit them in. And then I didn't want to do anything on the front for the body, but these are Mustang wheels, and they're 9-inch in front and 11.5 in the back, and they were sticking out, so I had to cut the front. So I ended up cutting this top piece off the front and just pulled the fender out, and then just welded a new piece on top. Okay. So that's how that front part is.
And what about talking about wheels? So,
yeah, so the wheels, these are Mustang. These are the FR 500 wheels, Mustang. So I changed the bolt, I just remachined the bolt pattern to the Mustang pattern. When I got the rear end from Strange, since they make it custom, I told them what bolt pattern I wanted, so that's the Mustang pattern. So I didn't do anything on the back for those.
And what about the brakes? You stuck with Volvo there, right?
Yeah, so well, originally I had custom ones made up. So I machined the hats, and then I had custom rotors for a 2-piece. So it was a 2-piece aluminum hat with the rotor, but it was 13-inch. And then I used the S80R Volvo Brembo calipers. So and I machined up the spacers for it.
And it stops okay, I guess.
Stops great. You know, that's not an issue anymore. And then, but that was almost 230,000 miles. I replaced them, but I couldn't find the information that I had for the rotor, so I couldn't just replace it. So these are actually the S80 rotors too that I replaced with. I just had to change my my offset, my adapter for it.
Yeah, but let's go. Yeah, let's go back to the engine, because I mean, you did a lot of work, but I see this cooler radiator right there. What is that? Is that the intercooler? Or?
Yeah, that's an air to water intercooler. So this is just like a radiator. It has water in it, and then that circulates through to here. So the air from the turbo goes through this. This is the actual intercooler, but it has water on it, and so the air goes through that. The water circulates through it, so it keeps it always ambient temperature. Okay. And it's such a big heat soak that, you know, for a daily driver, street car, it never changes temperature. So once it's set, I mean, unless I'm driving on the highway or something, I'll just turn on the switch and it circulates a little water and it's back to ambient again, and it'll stay there for probably 20 minutes. Oh, wow. So because when you're on boost, you're only on boost for a few seconds, maybe 5-10 seconds at the most, and it's a heat soak, so it'll never take that temperature away. So the engine always sees ambient temperature on this. Oh, that's great. Which was my biggest issue when I first swapped it over to the Volvo turbo, stock turbo, was you had the air conditioner condenser, then the intercooler, then the radiator. It would overheat, the car would overheat. So, you know, I'd have to like not go on boost, which was bad. So once I decided to do the stroker motor, this 2.8, I always had the intercooler, air-to-air intercooler, sticking out of the hood, because that's more efficient. And now the engine could run at full operating temperature all the time, never affected it. The air conditioner ran a lot better. And the one thing good too with the 240s is they have not the 4 headlights, the 2 headlights, so you have a giant radiator. So I could put a lot bigger radiator than you can do with the regular, with the 4 doors. And
another thing, I mean, you have sort of a sway bar thing set up here, which serves several different purposes. Sure. Tell me about, where did you start? Did you first put the sway bar in there?
Well,
or, I mean,
so I always had to put a strut tower, because this car is super stiff. Like, watch, it doesn't even move. No, it doesn't. And so if the strut, you always need a strut tower, you know, for any car. But when I put the supercharger on, the supercharger was underneath this part. So,
yeah, and I have to stop you there, because you haven't told me about the supercharger yet. So did you start out building it as, you know, building the turbo engine like this, or did you, then you took the turbo off and put on a supercharger?
Correct, so it always was turbo. Okay. And so, and you know, I like the turbos, but the problem I had with the turbos is this is my daily driver, and I take it on tons of trips. And so almost always on a long trip, like, you know, 2,000-3,000 mile trip, it would end up breaking the exhaust manifold. It would start cracking and leaking. So I never liked that. And the other thing was the drain on the turbo, the drain line, was always like leaking. And so I'd be dripping oil and stuff. And the turbos, the problem with the turbo is if you're not on boost, the turbo is is like plugging your exhaust system. So it's not efficient.
Yeah.
And so, especially with the 2.8 liter with an 8 valve head, which is designed for 2.1 liter. So, and even though I put bigger valves, you only can get like 20% more flow than you could get with that. So it's not, the head's not compatible really with the engine size. But the turbo always like plugged. So in 2010, I ended up putting a Eaton M62 supercharger from a Mercedes. So that was a clutch driven, and so I had that mounted on the side, and so that was my first.
But together with the turbo?
No, that was just, I eliminated the turbo, and then I had the Eaton, but it was a small one, so it only put out 6 pounds of boost.
Okay.
But the good thing about it was, it came on instantaneous. So anytime, any RPM, you hit boost, you had 6 pounds.
Yeah.
And so there was no lag or nothing. And the other good thing about it was not in the system at all. Yeah. So the car ran way more efficient. My gas mileage went up almost 3 or 4 miles to the gallon, just normal driving, than with the turbo setup. Okay. The turbo plugged your exhaust basically. But
then you wanted more horsepower, I guess.
Yeah, so because when I built the stroker motor, I built it for 30 pounds of boost. I really never ran it at 30 until just a couple dynos I did. But my normal setting was, because I had the dual setting for the turbo. So my normal street driving was like 14 pounds of boost, and then I'd hit the switch and I could go to 22. So that was my normal high boost. But as a daily driver, you're never on boost. You know, especially with the 2.8, and after 20 something years of driving it with a normally aspirated, going from that to this engine, it's a night and day. Yeah. So you never need it, and the car's light. But the supercharger idea never really left me, but I went back to turbo setup to get more power, which, you know, I was running 20 pounds of boost with the turbo, so it was fine. But those issues with the oil leaking and cracking manifolds, and I mean, it just wasn't too much fun. And so in 2020, I decided to go with the supercharger Mustangs off of Mustang. The GT500 is an Eaton M122 supercharger. And so that's just a big monster unit. But I remanufactured, made a whole new intake manifold with the intercooler setup in it. And that's when I cut the hood out. And this, like I say, this strut bracket was designed for that, because the supercharger was sticking up out of the hood, the whole supercharger. So, so I ended up making that go over, and then I needed some other ways to adapt my air to water intercooler. So that's when I put this front part on, which ties the whole front strut together. Oh, that's good. So that's where that comes from.
But what happened with the supercharger idea? So, so you changed to a huge one, and
I love the supercharger. I mean, it was just it was efficient, because the supercharger never comes in while you're driving at all. It's just out of the whole system. It doesn't take any load off the engine. Your exhaust is totally freed up, and it sounds great when you go on boost with it. But the problem was, the distributor was buried underneath it. And I was on a trip. I went to Oregon, and I was coming back home, and I got almost halfway back home. The car was missing like crazy, and I barely could make it over the hills. And the problem, I know, was the distributor was carboned up. And so, and it was buried under, and I know I could gotten it out to clean it, but I don't think I could have put it back in, because the way it was situated. And so I was like, the whole rest of the way home, I was like, you know what, the supercharger's gone. So I'm taking it out. And so I'm getting rid of that distributor too. So that's when I went with electronic ignition. So this is the called Waste Spark electronic ignition. That is 100,000% better than a distributor setup, because there's no corrosion stuff issues with carbon. So I changed over to that. So then I said, okay, I'm going to go back to turbo, and when I did that, I also was changing it to the 16 valve Volvo head. And so that's when I said, okay, I'm not going to do the supercharger now, because the head was a lot bigger for one thing, and I'd have more flow. So I went with a Borg-Warner turbocharger. It's a 7163. And I also built a new intake manifold for the 16 valve head. But the issue in the 16 valve head was a lot more flow capacity, 50% more than the 8-valve head. But the issue was it kept leaking oil. Like, I don't know what the deal was. And I had to take it out 3 or 4 times, and it still never could get that solved. So I went back to my 8-valve, and I built adapter plates for the exhaust manifolds, because I'm still using the 16-valve exhaust manifold and intake manifold. So I built adapter plates for from the 8-valve head to the 16-valve. So it's just another bolt-on. If I get that head back together, I can just put it back on, and these manifolds work perfect for that.
But I mean, when you came in, it sounds great. Does it run? Are you? I mean,
no, it runs great. You know, but it's the flow and the power, like the horsepower. And this is kind of what I was saying before, is that the horsepower, when I dynoed at 30 pounds of boost with the 8-valve head, I was 277 horsepower only, you know, but 3 times more than stock.
Yeah.
But
and on the rear wheels as well.
But this is at the rear wheels in 4th gear, so it's 1-to-1, and then no multipliers. And then the other thing though was the torque, 490 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow.
And this was before I did the wide body stuff. So that's why I did the wide body, because it just broke my transmissions.
Yeah.
So the stock Volvo transmission can't handle that torque. And so,
but then I have to, I mean, you told me about, I mean, the color scheme of the car as well, just to get into the history that, well, you have your brother actually had a Volvo in the green color.
Correct.
And your first one was
my
the beige?
This was the beige one.
Yeah.
My first one was the blue.
Okay, so it's like...
So mine were both 80s, 1980s. I had 2. And so the first one was the blue, which got totaled out. And so I went to the dealer, and then he sold me another one that was the exact same car, exact same, but it was the beige color. And I loved that beige color. I mean, it never showed dirt. I mean, that was the best thing. You didn't even have to wash that car ever, because it never got dirty. And the blue was good too. But my brother had a 78, which was the green 2-door. So we all had 2-doors. And so I went with the tribute colors when I repainted this one. And then I used to work for Toyota Off-Road Racing, so I had these rally lights these are off their 83, 84 score off-road truck. And I've always had those on since 85, basically, for just whatever. You know?
Okay, so let's back up here.
Yeah.
So when did this specific car, when did you get that?
I bought this new in 1981. So January 1981, but it was in 1980, but that was when my other one got totaled out, you know, so 6 months.
And when did you start to doctor with the engine? I mean, how long did you have it before you started?
The engine, I didn't do anything to the engine at all in this car until 2001.
Okay.
When I swapped it to the turbo.
So
and
it's
same
like
thing with my original one too. So on this, the first thing that I did, pretty much right after I bought it, I changed to Bilstein's shocks. That was the first thing, because I knew those handled better. And I had those on my blue one too. And so that was my first upgrade, was putting on Bilstein's.
So this is a one-owner Volvo hot rod car. I mean,
it's got 830,000 miles on it.
Wow.
So I put on, you know.
So I guess I don't even have to ask you about that, but you're never going to sell this car, are you?
Well, you know, this is the thing. I mean, I love this car. One thing about Volvos, you know, and I've talked to so many people that had Volvos, and they've all kind of agree, and none of them done this stuff. Yeah. But the thing is, it doesn't do anything bad. No. There's nothing bad. I mean, I'm not kidding. If I want to go shopping, I want to do something, I want to haul stuff, I have racks that I put on this car that I can haul all kinds of things. If anything that I want to do, this car does, and it does it perfectly. Yeah. There's no complaints. I mean, it's like autonomous driving almost. It's so efficient and easy to drive, and I use it for everything. I'm a construction, I do contracting, so this is my truck. I use it for working. So with the Volvo racks, you can kind of see where, see, this thing has been in because I had 35 sheets of 4x12 drywall in it. It's like 1,800 pounds on the roof rack, on those on the gutters. On the back, so this is the other thing. Like I said, I used to go off-roading and stuff, so I built the trailer hitch in the back, and so the reason it has those two, the one's for just the trailer, but if I was going to take my quad out to the desert and I was only going with one person or myself, then I built this setup so I have a rack that goes over the trunk and my quad hangs right off the back where I don't need my trailer.
No.
So I can go full highway speeds with the with my quad hanging off the back of the car.
Wow.
And so these things are so functional. The trunk
and what about this thing here? Is that a part of that construction, or is it just?
That's so. Because I always had those rally lights on there, and so when I did the supercharger, I said, you know what, I'm going to go with the rally theme. And I saw a Porsche. I was driving up to Big Bear, and I saw a Porsche with this monster wing. You know, it's overkill.
Yeah.
But I said I want to go with something like that. So I ended up building this for way cheaper, $20. I built this rear wing, but then it looked too plain in the back because I always had like a rear spoiler.
Yeah.
But it looked too plain, so I put this NASCAR air spoiler on, and you can put more writing on it too. So it was cool.
That's right. But I have to let the viewers hear what it sounds like, because you have a side pipe on the other side, which is very cool.
I'll fire it up. The inside's done a little differently too.
Yeah, you have a couple of gauges going on here.
So it's quiet because this is my daily driver. I have 2 mufflers on it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, it's a Volvo.
Well, just like you said, it idles just like a new car. I mean, it's
it
fantastic.
runs perfect. You know, these cars, like I say, it doesn't do anything bad at all. I mean, there's 0 complaints on this car. This is 100% my daily driver, and you know, it's just too much fun to drive.
And
it handles like a monster.
And you had it for close to half a century now.
Yeah, 45 years.
Yeah. So, and you don't seem to be a guy who stops. Do you have any ideas in the near future what you want to do more to it?
Well, you know, there's not too much more that I think I really need to do to it. But I know if an idea pops in, I'll do it. You know. But the one thing that I do really want to do is get that 16 valve head put back on, you know, because I know it's just going to be way more efficient, you know, and it just looks way cooler too. The 16 valve head is twice the size of this thing. It looks awesome with that, you know, and I probably will, you know, well, this turbo, I love this Borg Warner turbo. It's just super easy. But that's about it, you know, as far as doing anything modifying. Convertibling, might want to do a convertible. The 2 doors I think would look awesome with the convertible because the line is complete made for convertible.
I agree.
There's no bump up or anything, and so most of the cars with a convertible, they change the body line, but this is built like if you just chop the top off, that looks sweet.
But you won't do that to this car, right? Or
I would do.
might?
You know, this is I just do whatever. You know, anything I come up with, you know, I do it for myself.